So, this is our first morning talk for the International Women's Day retreat. And we're happy to be doing this within our daily online Sangha to bring you in on the conversation. And Nellie and I will be having a conversation about the topic.
So many of you might know that in our book, Reflective Meditation, Cultivating Kindness and Curiosity in the Buddha's Company, we define ourselves as feministic, a feministic approach to meditation and Buddhism. And in a way that puts us in the fringe or the minority position. And we're a minority in the sense of being women-led. I don't think that most sanghas, I'm sure some are, but most are, it's probably a minority position that it is women teachers. And we also are in a minority position with a more dominant mainstream mindfulness culture.
Right. Doing a practice that's not very well known or been somewhat invisible to the mainstream, but it's something that we've seen work and we have a certain dedication to it and understanding of it. In regards to it being a little bit on the fringe, it is counterintuitive to let your life into your meditation practice, to let thinking go on, to let the stories unfold, to be curious about them and become kinder towards them. And it's counterintuitive. It takes a long time for this to develop. So we can't like quickly actually talk to others about our practice and have them get it.
Yeah, I remember in the early years of doing this, I mean, I was just befuddled by, I felt like every attempt I made to try to talk about what I was doing was quite inadequate and didn't really communicate very well. And now well, I'm not exactly even sure where I'm at now, but I guess I don't expect that. Maybe is where I'm at. I don't expect that, the only way you can, it's a conundrum because the only way you can learn that it's beneficial is by doing it. But if you don't think that doing what we're saying is going to be beneficial, why would you do it? And why would you learn that it's beneficial? So it's a
Here,
catch-22.
here we are. And as you said, we're coming out about this, that this is, in a sense, talking about it and really articulating this somewhat conundrum and dilemma that we have. We're putting it into words and discerning it because it will actually make it more visible and something that we can explore and talk about then.
Right. And visible and aware become more aware, right? And we think both of them can be beneficial. Of course, you never get it. You never would want to be completely visible, couldn't be completely aware, but leaning into that direction. Yeah, so I played around with that term coming out. Um, Coming out as feministic, coming out as women leading, women practicing a practice that seems to be working for us, coming out with our alternative um, ways of meditating.
Right. And alternative takes on the Dharma teachings, alternative ways that we actually pass this along. So, for example, we don't have transmission in this practice. There's not one person saying you are now deigned to teach reflective meditation. We have different ways to validate our practice.
And that came up when that sort of came up for me. Been a grant out for women teachers to get money to be on retreat, and one of the questions to apply for this grant is to validate that you've received the transmission. And for some of you who don't know what that means that, again, I mean, Linda sort of said it, an authority has said that you're up to snuff, you've done the work, you're a good, adequate teacher, whatever the word may be. But I realized that the problem with that, among others, is that it's coming through a male patriarchal lineage. And so what are those conscious or unconscious, aware or unaware measures of what makes somebody up to snuff? And I think it is embedded in the patriarchy.
Nellie, I would even go so far to say it's not just the lineage, it's the system that then everybody has to play in. In the Gen X Dharma Teachers Sangha, you can't even be a part of that Sangha unless you name a lineage and a person who gave you transmission. So that was hard in the sense of having a teacher that had unethical behaviors to then name that person as the person who gives you transmission becomes quite a debacle. But it also leads to an independent path that we've had to become more independent because of our history with male teachers. And that doesn't always lead to that. It also leads to people leaving the Dharma. So there's consequences to it. But in our case, it's made us more independent.
Right. And I have seen many women leave the Dharma after an infraction, an ethical infraction by a male teacher. It sort of breaks my heart. And on the other hand, I feel like we're very fortunate to have found a path between us and amongst us.
Yeah. Now, we have done a little bit of research on feministic practices and masculine practices, and AI helped us out with this coming list. Actually, Bill's research with AI. So, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the differences between masculine and feministic or feminine. But I'll also preface it by saying that it seems the wave of Dharma teaching is going towards more feministic practices and validating them. And this has become more common, which is wonderful. And yet it makes it a little bit challenging because we've gone a step further to challenge the traditional masculine way of teaching or the translations of teaching. Help me here, Nellie. I'm kind of getting a little, but we really have this distinction of looking at the teachings and where the teaching translations run masculine or patriarchal, and we're really debunking some of that.
And it's really embedded in our practice and our practice and our process of how we teach. And we could go into that another time. We don't have time now, but it's really, really embedded in a lot of the choices we make. Now, I want to say something about AI, God knows. But because I said God knows because I don't know very little, so hopefully someone else like God. But no, I meant it as an expression, of course. But it's interesting because this is the whatever, I can't think of the word, the combination, that's not the right word, of all these different things that this robot was able to find on the web about what this is all about. So, it's just interesting. These are not our ideas. This is sort of conglomerate. That's the word I was looking. Conglomerate of ideas about what is a more traditional masculine understanding and what is more feministic. So.
Right. Right. And truthfully, I hadn't even thought to go to AI on this. It was actually Bill who kind of, came in and brought this to us. So that was so helpful because it gave us a little bit of a structure to talk about this with. And there were 5 points that it felt really showed a more masculine practice, Dharma practice. And the first one was an emphasis on transcendence.
And we could talk about transcendence for hours. We won't. But let's, for the moment, just think about it as getting away, getting above, transcending our usual concerns, our daily life, our relationships, our feelings, our thoughts, getting to someplace better.
Better beyond. Yep.
Yes.
And the direction we've gone is to really focus the practice on conditionality. What are the conditions of your life? What are you dealing with? What are some of the hidden ones, the unknown conditions that keep patterns going, that keep us in pain or harm or suffering?
The second one, according to AI, not second in order of priority, but another one is goal-directed meditation. that a more masculine approach would be goal directed. We don't we don't have a goal for you. You probably have goals for yourself, and they could be very important and useful, but we don't tell you the goal of direction of meditation. Um, we we don't know. We don't know
We
what's
don't.
best for you.
Right, right. Another one is hierarchical teaching structures. And we're not throwing out hierarchy. It's not like it's completely invalid, but really focusing more on a flexible teaching structures, flexible relationships between students and teachers. And actually, we often say that our practice is student oriented. Again, what matters to you, we'd like you to develop that within your practice rather than it coming from us, what you should pay attention to.
Next on the list, stoic or warrior-like mindsets. Um, we are not stoic. Our basic instructions begin with when you're sitting, find a comfortable position. That's not stoic. So it starts right there. Be gentle with whatever, if you can, be gentle with what arises. Not stoic, not warrior-like. And I feel like Linda maybe summarized this point in her provisional fourth mark of existence, which is we have needs.
Right, that we are not invulnerable, that the needs that we have in our lives, if we don't know them, they'll operate under our consciousness and they'll play out in poisonous or toxic ways. So that we really brought that into the Dharma rather than just saying, oh, that's something we deal with in psychology. We really see it as a mark of existence, something that if we don't acknowledge, we're going to have a difficult time existing.
And last is less emphasis on emotional expression. And I certainly know that, you should just like my earlier views on equanimity was sort of without emotion. I don't see it that way anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Emotion often got paired with sensitivity in a negative way, that one is too sensitive or too emotional, instead of really examining those emotions and seeing the intelligence within them, and that they can actually point us in the right direction, a wholesome direction.
So Linda, I think we should leave off this last part and bring it in another time and just go to the ending of this chapter in our book, which is what do we do? What have we done with this complex mess of power moves, biases, and hierarchy?
And
Big
I'll
question.
just, yeah, it's a big question because I'll even put it in the you. What do you do? What have you done with this complex mess of power moves, biases, and hierarchy?